Recovery Program. And our KBLA Talk 1580 Community Health and Wellness Fair is Saturday, November the 8th, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. right here in Lamert Park at Catch at Audubon Middle School. All the details about these upcoming events can be found at our website, KBLA1580.com. So thanks again to all those who supported the Left Coast Forum, and a special thanks to our partners this year. The LA Progressive, the Empowerment Congress, Community Coalition, Southwest Voter Registration Education Project, Partnership for Growth, UTLA, LA Care Health Plan, Black Progressive Action Coalition, St. John's Community Health, the National Lawyers Guild, the Weingart Foundation, and the Liberty Hill Foundation.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. This is Fat Meat Fridays with Gina Towns and our very special guest, Bishop Tolton, will be joining us on the program momentarily. I did want to opine for just a moment on where we find ourselves as a nation at this moment and in this hour. 42 million Americans are going to lose their Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program benefits on November 1st, the day after Halloween, which is today. This sad and very tragic moment in American history is only made more serious by the idea that 42 million Americans need food assistance in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, period. While we're fighting for their benefits and the restoration of their benefits through the budget reconciliation process, the fact of the matter remains 42 million of our brothers and sisters, of our neighbors, are food inadequate on a monthly basis, and they require these benefits in order to eat and avoid hunger. When you look at the 44 million Americans that Obamacare covers, that's 44 million Americans who without Obamacare would not have health care at all, or the form of health care that they would have would not cover even their most basic needs when one considers skyrocketing premiums and costs. Of course, there's overlap. But there are not 42 million unemployed people in America. They're just not. That would be 1/5 of the American population. 1/5 of the American population is not unemployed. That would be depressionary unemployment. But the idea that 42 million people, the vast majority of whom work every day, 1 job, 2 jobs, 3 jobs, odd and ends jobs, to make money to eat, and they still need government assistance, that is at the core of a moral dilemma for this nation. The fact that there's overlap with millions of Americans in the middle class who need Obamacare, and many of those Americans work those 1, 2, and 3 jobs. They need some form of Obamacare as well. And so the messaging of both the Republican Party, which appears to be callous, and the messaging of the Democratic Party, which is to shut down the government, to restore credits to the Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, and look at what they're doing to those of us who need supplemental nutrition programs, seems to miss the point that America, both Democratic and Republican, is no longer pursuing a full employment economy for all of the American people. We hear the labor statistics. We hear the Dow Jones Industrial Average every single day on our nation's news. But rarely, if ever, do we focus on those Americans who are just getting by. Our very special guest in this hour, the creator of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Gina Towns, the president and CEO of 519 Productions and the executive producer of our program. She's also the host of Reflectivities on our weekly series, Fat Meat Fridays. A graduate of Hampton University with a Bachelor of Arts in Mass Media and Journalism, Gina also earned her master's in theology and social justice from Princeton Theological Seminary. Also joining us is Bishop William Tolton. Bishop Joseph Tolton, I do apologize. Bishop Tolton is the founder and president of Interconnected Justice, which was established in 2019. The strategic intent of the organization is to be a force uniting global racial justice movements in which the continent of Africa and its diaspora build an ecosystem of self-defined and determined advocacy. Gina, Bishop Tolton, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Hi, Jeff.
Always good to be with both of you. I'm so sorry, Gina.
Hi, Bishop.
Blessings to you, my dear sister.
To you as well.
Bishop, we have about a minute and a half before we come forward. A turning point in the relationship between the federal government, the government of the United States, and the poor is all too apparent, at least to me, when we dig deeper beyond the fight for the benefits, the fact that people need the benefits in the first place. Bishop Tolton.
You well addressed the fact that the issue that we must focus on as much as we clearly have to also focus on the urgency of those that need these benefits in the now. But as much as we are talking about the now, we always have to look at what are the structural issues that support and undergird the fact that 40 plus million, as you said, million Americans who overwhelmingly are employed people, right? These are not all retired senior citizens, but overwhelmingly people who work 40 plus hours a week, and yet their income does not allow them to provide food for their families on a consistent basis, and they need to supplement their income with these SNAP benefits. That unto itself is certainly at the heart of the issue. But if I can quickly just go to the current politics and the current theatrics around the politics of the issue at the moment, I think we have to once again go back to Project 2025, and we have to connect this to the Christian rights agenda to really blow up the American safety net, because they're deeply suspicious of it. They think that it's bloated. They think that it's aggressive. They think that it reinforces the deconstruction of the American family, and in particular kneecaps the role of the man and the provider in the home. And so I certainly, on the other side of a break, would start with taking a look at why this is really a continuation of the implementation of the far religious rights playbook.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. This is Fat Meat Fridays with Gina Towns. Our very special guest is Bishop Joseph Tolton. More when we come forward on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
On Thursday evening, November 6th, you're invited to the next KBLA Talk 1580 Altadena Town Hall meeting. This time, we're convening at Victory Bible Church, 1497 North Hill Avenue in Pasadena. The town hall will once again be broadcast live on KBLA Talk 1580 from 4 to 6 p.m. on Thursday, November 6th. But you're invited to join us in person for this urgent and necessary community conversation. The theme for this Altadena Eaton Canyon Fire Town Hall is Understanding the Wildfire Recovery Compensation Fund. The primary focus of this gathering is to inform residents about Southern California Edison's newly launched Wildfire Recovery Compensation Program and provide clarity on eligibility and the claims process. There are plenty of questions to be asked, and only KBLA Talk 1580 has the right moderators to ask the tough questions, the right stakeholders and community activists to share their insights, and we have confirmed the participation of corporate executives from Southern California Edison to answer our queries. So be sure to join us at Victory Bible Church in Pasadena, 1497 North Hill Avenue on Thursday, November 6th. The event is free and open to the public, but registration is required at KBLA1580.com. That's KBLA1580.com. Light refreshments will be served immediately following the live town hall. This KBLA Talk 1580 Altadena Rising Town Hall is brought to you by the Black Freedom Fund.
California, this is your moment. The special election is November 4th, and your vote helps decide your future, your community, and your state. Drop your ballot at a secure drop box. Visit an early vote center or mail it. Your participation powers democracy. Every ballot makes a difference. Tell a friend to do the same. Sign up at where'smyballot.sos.ca.gov to track your ballot. Make your voice count. Don't delay. Vote today. A message from the California Secretary of State.
$5,000. That's the average amount of money people in the U.S. are now spending on gas in a year. $5,000. That's crazy. If you drive, you have to download Upside, the free app that gives you cash back every time you get gas. That's right. You can earn real cash back with Upside just by buying the gas you're already buying. You can literally start earning cash back today.
I use Upside every time I fill up, and I've already made around $300.
You're putting gas in your car anyway. Why not get real cash back? If you like free money, download Upside.
I'm saving the cash I earn from using Upside to help pay for a vacation later this year.
Download the free Upside app now to earn cash back every time you buy gas. Use promo code MAJOR25 to get an extra 25 cents per gallon on your first tank. You can cash out anytime right to your bank, PayPal, or a gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the bonus on your first tank. That's code MAJOR25 for a 25 cents per gallon bonus.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Bishop Tolton, as an LGBT global faith leader, Bishop Tolton continues to serve as the Bishop of Global Ministries for the Fellowship of Affirming Ministries. In this capacity, he designs and manages TFAMs, Justice Ministries, and collaborations outside of the United States with a focus on East Africa. Bishop Tolton works directly with leaders to build integrated justice movements, connecting activists with social and civil society advocates, media professionals, academics, and political leaders. Bishop Tolton, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you, dear brother.
Gina Towns has produced and directed live broadcasts at Afternoon with Dr. Lewis Sullivan, MD, and influenced a rewrite of the opening scene and position of Morehouse School of Medicine's brand while directing communications, logistics, and location management of the HBO film The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks, executive produced, starring Oprah Winfrey. You can see her as a host, a brainchild, and producer of the MSM miniseries YouTube Mentoring Me. Gina is also a recording artist who released a song that she wrote and performed her hit single, Yes, hit number 26 with a bullet on the Billboard chart. Gina, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show and Reflectivity and Fat Meat Fridays with Gina Towns.
Yeah, well, thank you, Jesse. We are, I guess we're in a 2-hour expanded special.
We certainly are, Gina. I want to ask you a question that follows up on what the bishop responded to just before we came forward, and that is the invisibility of the poor in America. Mm-hmm. We could discuss it around the world, but certainly here in America. And the reason I say invisible, because when we manipulate the numbers that we're hearing about every single day on the news, 42 million people who need SNAP. These are 42 million Americans. There's no such thing as 42 million unemployed Americans, so they got to be working, but they still need supplemental nutritional assistance programs. When we think about 44 million Americans who need Obamacare, which is why the Democrats have objected to the Reconciliation Act in the first place, these are Americans who are working, cannot put food on their table, nor provide for their own health. These Americans are invisible unless we talk about them and bring them to the nation's consciousness and visibility. Your thoughts on the invisibility of people?
My initial thought, and thank you for bringing that to the forefront the way that you did and the picture that you paint. Well, number one, they're invisible if you allow them to be invisible. There are homeless people all over this country that we have to step around, encounter as we enter different places to do business. We encounter them if they want to wash our windshields at the gas station. People who are looking for work, people who cannot get a job if they have come back from a stint in incarceration. So they're visible and uninvisible because, as you mentioned, there are a number of people who just can't make ends meet. And so when I think about that question, the first thing I thought about when you posed it was that's a spirit problem. And there is a spirit problem in our nation. Um, there's one problem from the leadership. There's another problem for the people who elect the leadership that does not do something about it. And that's not just this administration. This problem has been going on in our country for a long time. The nation of such wealth, who, bodes democracy across the globe. Um, and even at its founding, which is another issue I'd like to, really talk about more expansively, but we have not necessarily lived what it is to be on the Jericho Road, to see our neighbor needing help.
Just before I go back to the bishop, when I think, and I appreciate that, Gina, when I think about invisibility, I think about the police officer who performs an 8-hour shift. And then after he or she leaves the 8-hour shift, they're a security guard. They become a security guard at Walmart or Target. It's a 16-hour day because the 8-hour shift on the public payroll isn't enough for the child in college. When I think about the fireman who performs an 8-hour shift, and then he dons on a blue apron at Walmart in the evening, and he's stacking shelves, the second job. When I say invisibly poor, I'm also speaking about the worker at Popeyes, the worker at McDonald's, who works the 8-hour shift on their way to the next job, which may even be home care or caring for someone else's children. Mm-hmm. These people never stop working, and they still between jobs. They're just between jobs, and they just can't get health care because they're not in a job long enough. And so therein lies Obamacare, or therein lies the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. Bishop Tolton.
When we think about the life of Dr. King, and in particular when we think about his death, I think for most of us, we attribute his assassination to the fact that there was obviously a reaction to the ways in which he pushed the nation forward around matters of racial justice. But in fact, the greatest turbulence that he experienced in his ministry was when he pivoted after the Civil Rights Act and wanted to really move the nation towards the Poor People Campaign, in which very specifically he wanted to unite poor Appalachia with the poor urban inner cities. He wanted people who were financially exhausted despite their ethnicity or race to come together under one banner and to really challenge these structural issues of inequity that are baked in to America's racialized system of capitalism. It was the reaction and response to that which led to his murder. Bishop Barber currently talks a lot about this in his work with the Poor People's Campaign, in which he challenges both Republicans, honestly, and Democrats to actually see the invisible population that you're speaking of, dear Brother Jackson. And that if a party, and particularly the Democrats, were to tap into the political possibilities of being in alignment with the poor, it would lift us up in terms of the number of voters just by probably about a 20% gain for whatever the party is, and in this case, talking about the Democrats, who spoke to that particular population. And what's happened is that we hide behind this celebration of and desire to save the middle class. And because we don't want to disenfranchise the middle class or associate them with the truth of their economic situation, we don't talk about the poor. We don't talk about the impoverished. It's a huge political blind spot, unfortunately, not just on the right, but to some degree, I think it can be argued on the left as well.
I think about my dad in 1984 and 1988 when he said, rising tides don't lift all boats, especially boats that are stuck at the bottom. And you brought up Martin Luther King Jr. on April 3rd, 1968, there in Memphis, Tennessee, helping the sanitation workers who, without a contract, without a union to provide them for the basic benefits, and the death of those, I believe, 3 sanitation workers who were taking a nap in the back of the truck. That is the part of the truck where they dump the garbage. And apparently, either by accident or some mechanical malfunction, the actual grinder that closes to push the crushed the bodies of these 3 men. And that began the Memphis sanitation workers' strike for rights. These were the invisible men. And in our society, at one point in time, and it's hard for the modern American to appreciate it, Gina, we called these men in that era garbage men. They were known as garbage men. To add dignity to their work, they became sanitation workers. To add dignity to the life of the work of the men and women who sanitize our cities and remove trash. We refused to call them trash men and garbage men and elevated them with dignity to sanitation worker. Gina?
Yeah, and I think that went across the board in many forms of employment where people try to add a level of dignity. And even, even within a middle class working segment, if you will, you see people with changes of title. And as you were talking, I was thinking that's kind of almost the foundation of our country. If you think about the Civil War, if you owned a certain number of slaves, if you were male, land owning, slave owning, and you had 50 slaves, you did not have to go to war. And so it was the poor people who went to war, and you saw them aligned side by side with some of the slaves who were escaping, so that they didn't have to fight. I mean, that's just the foundation of our nation to a degree. And I don't know if that's just a human quality as well. I think that we have to consider that on a global basis, how we treat and regard the rich. And so, spiritually speaking, we are okay with inviting people to sit at our table who dress a certain way or have a certain education. Even when I experienced this being in the full-time ministry, I would see certain people shun other people. If it was going to be too much work, if you actually have to cook food and help take care of these people, go buy some diapers or, help them in their household, that was more of a burden. And sometimes you can find people who seek out people that are not as much work. I think you call them the cook, no, not the cook, but the Indian chiefs, if you will. People want to associate in those circles. So I guess I hate to go here, but there's the poorness of spirit and there's the poorness of our physical being. And so we have a double dilemma that I see that we need to solve. So how do we begin to approach that?
Bishop Tolton, we have about 3 minutes before we come forward.
I so appreciate the fact that you have linked the spiritual crisis and really to this food crisis that we're experiencing, and that at its heart, it really is a crisis for our spiritual sense of compassion and empathy. And the ideals of compassion and empathy are actually very much so under threat. And for me, it goes back to a part of what I was saying earlier, that a part of the playbook of Project 2025 is to move the safety net into the hands of faith leaders and into community leaders. Because if we place the safety net into that context, we can then manipulate the distribution of aid, as it were, to people that are poor, and then connect it with manipulating them with all sorts of, spiritual or religious teachings. If in fact the service provider is coming from a very particular religious perspective, and that provision of service must be married to evangelizing and proselytizing a certain brand of the gospel, which is extremely unfortunate. This is a spiritual crisis at its heart, and it is time for American Christians to answer the question: are we really like Jesus, or are we serving the Christ of the empire?
Mm.
I find it somewhat ironic that we would find ourselves actually having to find the truth of a religious story, a historical event, looking at the liberation ministry of Jesus of Nazareth and looking at empire at the same time. And empire, I think, is a conscious judgment, from the tearing down of the east wing of the White House to not going to the Congress of the United States seeking a formal declaration of war or activity in Venezuela, to the activity in the Gaza, to the treatment of our brown brothers and sisters, and yes, our African American brothers and sisters in the city by the United States military. This crackdown is, I have to say, Bishop Tolton, just 10 months ago was unimaginable.
That's right.
On the scale that we are experiencing it. Gina and I have been talking about that a lot lately. Gina, we have about 30 seconds before we come forward. Do you want to take us out?
Sure. I look forward to us getting back to this conversation. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, Reflectivity with Bishop Joseph Tolton and Gina Towns, and your host, Jesse Jackson Jr. We'll come forward in about 6 minutes.
On KBLA.
The biggest names.
The best conversations.
You're riding with Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. A federal judge is giving the Trump administration until Monday to decide how it will release SNAP funds with benefits set to expire Saturday. The decision could affect 42 million low-income Americans if the government does not reopen. The ruling comes after 25 Democratic-led states sued over the funding issue. New Obamacare premiums are now live on healthcare.gov with open enrollment starting Saturday. Rates are expected to rise on average of 26%, though health research nonprofit KFF warns costs could jump 114% if tax credits expire. And the Virginia NAACP is denying reports that it endorsed Democratic candidate Abigail Spanberger in the governor's race. The group's president clarified the NAACP does not endorse candidates, only policies, and urged Black Virginians to vote in next week's election. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Isn't it time you booked that tropical getaway you've been dreaming of? With Fiji Airways, fly direct from LA or San Francisco to Fiji. Start your dream vacation on your way to the beautiful islands of Fiji. For details, visit FijiAirways.com or head to your local travel agent. Conditions apply.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Dodgers have a simple priority for Game 6 in the World Series tonight at Toronto. Unlock their offense. A serious lack of hitting is the reason the Dodgers are on the verge of losing the World Series. The Dodgers trailed Toronto 3-2 in the best of 7. They have struck out 55 times. After reaching base 9 times in Game 3, Shohei Ohtani has not had a hit in the last 2 games. Mookie Betts is 3 for 25 at the plate. If these numbers don't change tonight, the series could be over. First pitch tonight at 5 o'clock. A crowd of 47,266 showed up last night at Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia, home of the NFL Philadelphia Eagles, to watch an HBCU football game between Delaware State and Norfolk State. Delaware State head coach Deshaun Jackson and Norfolk State head coach Michael Vick were teammates for 5 seasons with the Eagles. Both are in their first seasons as head coaches. Delaware State won the game 27-20. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We We've got your black.
First, they tried to erase our history.
Pentagon removed training material about the Tuskegee Airmen. Arlington National Cemetery removing histories that highlighted Black veterans from its website.
Then they tried to erase our jobs.
Black Americans will disproportionately bear the brunt.
Now they think they can erase our votes.
Steal 5 congressional seats, decimating Black and brown representation.
Enough is enough. I matter, my rights matter, and our future matters. That's why I'm voting yes on Prop 50. Prop 50 lets us temporarily redraw California congressional maps to counter the election rigging Trump is trying to pull off in Texas and other states. Californians across the state are stepping up and using the power of their vote to stop the madness. So vote yes on Prop 50 by November 4th, because we can't let them erase our history or our future. This ad is paid for by the NAACP and not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
Vote centers across Los Angeles County are open. Don't wait for Election Day. Vote early at any vote center near you. You can drop off your ballot, vote in person, or even register and vote the same day. Make your plan, make your voice heard, and make it count. Visit lavote.gov to find a vote center or official ballot drop box close to home. That's lavote.gov, your trusted source for voting in LA County.
Donald Trump has all but declared war on California, sending in the National Guard, blocking disaster relief, and cutting funds to our colleges. And now, he and Texas Republicans are trying to rig the next election by stealing congressional seats from Black voters in states like Texas.
They want to rig these elections, and they want the power that gerrymandering provides.
Seriously, look it up. But Prop 50 is how we fight back. It gives Californians the power to fight fire with fire and beat Trump at his own game. Prop 50 creates temporary emergency congressional maps that level the playing field and protect the power of Black votes. Not just in California, but across the country. Your vote matters, and the whole country is counting on California to lead. So use your vote to protect our power, our history, and our future. Vote yes on Prop 50 by November 4th. Ad paid for by Yes on 50, the Election Rigging Response Act, Governor Newsom's Ballot Measure Committee, Ad Committee's top funders, HMP for Prop 50, and Fund for Policy Reform.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. This is Fat Meat Fridays with our very special host, Miss Gina Towns. Gina, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Hi, Jesse. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking on this Halloween, this macabre experience that we have in America. Bishop Tolton, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Blessings, dear brother Jesse and my dear sister Gina.
I wanted to pivot for just a moment with a kind of narrow focusing on something Newton said about for every action in the universe, there is an equal and opposite reaction. So messaging matters. My central nervous system is affected by messaging. What people say to me, how they say it to me. Bruce Lee even said you can intercept someone's intent long before they throw a punch or a kick. Their spirit energy communicates certain things about Bishop, who they are, right? So I'm wondering if, as I see these memes continue to emerge on social media that depict the SNAP benefit program as largely, Gina, taking advantage, disparaging in gross depictions of Black women, simply suggesting, to Bishop Tolton's point, a home where there is no man, or not the modular American family, that the reshaping of that social arrangement, that spiritual and legal construct in the United States is something that could be avoided in terms of messaging. It could have been avoided if the issue were about the full employment of the American people and the things that fully employed people deserve. Now, fully employed people ought to be able to pay a mortgage. Fully employed people ought to be able to pay a car note. Fully employed people ought to have health care. fully employed people ought to be able to put their kids through college. Ain't no one accusing them of being a tax consumer because they're revenue generators. I can think of a whole lot of language associated with an argument for America has given up on the idea, Bishop and Gina, of full employment. But to have me defending something that creates the memes and only adds to the narrative that when we talk about poverty in America, when we speak about it in the context of full employment, almost no one can disagree with that. Gina?
Well, I would like to go back to what you said about households that are without male direction. And once again, that goes to a historical precedent in the United States dating back to slavery, in which purposefully you would see the man sold off, leaving the mother, his wife, and their children on a plantation, and sometimes the children were sold off. And so the idea of family applying to everyone in the United States has been, to say the least, a rocky road. And then fast forward, you see the advent of high-rise housing, where in particular men of color disproportionately are sent to prison in their own structure, and their wives and their children being left behind in those particular structures with bars, living almost in a prison in and of themselves. And so this is not a new phenomenon for America, and it certainly does not help to build bridge community, and it does not help for the fabric of our society. And so then when you get ready to put these people in front of a camera and justify what it is that your agenda is to get rid of them, then you've done a great job and had a great campaign for decades.
Sure.
The cynicism here and the hypocrisy is towering. I mean, to the points that Gina just made, when you are selling Black fathers and Black young boys, and of course women were sold as well, but when you're selling Black fathers and boys at the auction block and destroying the family, and when you are putting breadcrumbs toward another form of slavery in the 14th Amendment, meaning we can enslave those that are incarcerated, and then we go on a mission of mass incarceration targeting Black men. And so you do this to our families, and in particular targeting the men in our families, and then you turn around and you blame the very people that you've targeted. You blame them for not having men in the families and not having whole nuclear families that are able to sustain themselves economically. So the system undermines our family structure and then holds us accountable for being in that position. And I just think that kind of cynicism is not only unproductive, but it's lethal, and it is absolutely intentional. There is no question that we need to have more of a sense of kind of Black economic sovereignty in our society. There's no question that we need certainly to be far more self-reliant. And obviously our current reality speaks to that. But we have always been a people that have been striving toward those ends. We have always been a people who have had a vision of being able to be self-reliant. It is just the structural barriers that we have had to continuously leapfrog in order to get to those possibilities that have made things so very, very, very difficult for people of African descent in the American experience.
Bishop, I wish I had a clip of something I heard within the last hour that Gina played for us, and that was Donald Trump saying that SNAP benefits are largely Democrats anyway. Gina, I know you play that clip for me. Tell me your initial thoughts about that.
Yeah. He was asked by a reporter, how did he feel about this being the end of benefits for people who still needed to eat. He says, well, they're largely Democrats anyway. What are you talking about? You don't even know who it is. And I can't use the word serving in our country because that's not the goal. This is not about being a public servant. This is about self-service. But You don't even know who your constituency is. You don't even know who the people are who actually elected you.
In his little simple mind and simple thinking, I'm more convinced on this day than ever, Bishop and Gina, that he is only interested in being president of half the American people.
Absolutely.
He's just not interested in being president of the whole country. Bishop.
When he commuted the sentence of George Santos, and he was challenged for having done so, his response was, well, at least he had the good sense to be a Republican. I mean, this is where we are at this point. I forget the name of the member of his cabinet who was caught on tape taking the bag of money, right? And they're going to gaslight us with this idea that in fact
Holman,
he did nothing.
Holman, the head of the ICE agency, Tom Holman.
It's Tom.
Exactly. It's
My
like
boy
he
from
was
the
caught with the bag of money on tape. But because he's a Republican, and to your point, Jesse, he's interested in being president of half of the country, but he is interested in fully destroying the political infrastructure on the left and the pipeline of funding that supports more left-leaning social and civil society organizations.
I heard that there's some investigations, maybe even some queries that are coming that were on the news today about the Black Lives Matter leadership that are finding themselves under a new DOJ type scrutiny as the president of the United States continues his vindictive campaign against literally everyone on the political left. Anyone who does not agree with him is likely to get a visit by the federal government.
Yeah, that is an issue. And we've seen that play out not only in the United States, though it was pushed back, but we've seen it around the world. And what's interesting is what are we going to do about it? That's just the interesting question that I think that we face right now.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. More on Fat Meat Fridays with Gina Towns and our very special guest, Bishop Joseph Tolton, when we come forward.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Donald Trump has all but declared war on California, sending in a National Guard, blocking disaster relief, and cutting funds to our colleges. And now, he and Texas Republicans are trying to rig the next election by stealing congressional seats from black voters in states like Texas.
They want to rig these elections, and they want the power that gerrymandering provides.
Seriously, look it up. But Prop 50 is how we fight back. It gives Californians the power to fight fire with fire and beat Trump at his own game. Prop 50 creates temporary emergency congressional maps that level the playing field and protect the power of black votes. Not just in California, but across the country. Your vote matters, and the whole country is counting on California to lead. So use your vote to protect our power, our history, and our future. Vote yes on Prop 50 by November 4. Ad paid for by Yes on 50, the Election Rigging Response Act, Governor Newsom's Ballot Measure Committee, Ad Committee's top funders, HMP for Prop 50, and Fund for Policy Reform.
Open enrollment is your opportunity to choose a plan that connects you to Providence's comprehensive healthcare network. Choose a plan that includes Providence and gain access to a dedicated team of highly trained primary care physicians and specialists. From nationally recognized doctors and hospitals, Providence ensures quality care is always within reach. When you choose Providence, you choose after-hours care through our nurse advice line, urgent care, or virtual express care. You choose 24/7 access through the Providence mobile app to message providers, request prescription refills, schedule appointments, check lab results, and more. This open enrollment, prioritize your well-being with the peace of mind that comes from choosing a provider that values excellence and compassionate care. Don't just choose a plan. Choose a plan dedicated to health equity and community engagement. Choose a plan that believes health is a human right. Choose a plan that delivers exceptional care and cares about your community. Choose a plan that offers Providence. Visit chooseprovidence.org to learn more.
First, they tried to erase our history.
Pentagon removed training material about the Tuskegee Airmen. Arlington National Cemetery removing histories that highlighted Black veterans from its website.
Then they tried to erase our jobs.
Black Americans will disproportionately bear the brunt.
Now they think they can erase our votes.
Steal 5 congressional seats, decimating Black and brown representation.
Enough is enough. I matter, my rights matter, and our future matters. That's why I'm voting yes on Prop 50. Prop 50 lets us temporarily redraw California congressional maps to counter the election rigging Trump is trying to pull off in Texas and other states. Californians across the state are stepping up and using the power of their vote to stop the madness. So vote yes on Prop 50 by November 4th, because we can't let them erase our history or our future. This ad is paid for by the NAACP and not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
Established in 2020 during a time of deep racial unrest across our state and country, the Black Freedom Fund was created to make sure that leaders and organizations working to support Black communities and build power have the resources they need to stay in the fight for the long haul. We believe that those closest to the issues impacting our communities know best how to solve them. That's why in just the last 5 years, we've granted more than $45 million to over 200 grassroots organizations across California. That is the largest collective investment in Black organizing in history, and we're just getting started. We are clear-eyed and committed, more now than ever, to our people, our power, and our possibility. Join us in creating a future where Black people harness their full power to shape their lives and realize a just world for all. Learn more at fundblackfreedom.org. That's fundblackfreedom.org. The Black Freedom Fund is proud to sponsor Conversation Live Altadena Rising with James Farr on KBLA Talk 1580.
eBay has reinvented vehicle buying. From click to curb, everything's covered. Ever try to buy a car online and end up in a parking lot with a stranger and some blind trust? That era is over. Now with Secure Purchase, eBay isn't just where you find your car. It's where you buy it, start to finish. Title, financing, registration, delivery, it's all built in. This is the modern way to buy your next ride on eBay. eBay. Things people love. Secure Purchase is powered by Caramel Dealer Services, LLC, an eBay subsidiary.
It all comes down to this, folks.
Yep, the entire season is on the line.
But my throat has officially thrown in the towel.
Sounds like you need Vicks VapoCool drops. Their max strength and vaporize sore throat pain.
Whoa! These VapoCool drops hit fast.
Speaking of fast, did you just see that play?
Yeah, he vaporized that ball.
That pun should have come with a penalty.
Vaporize sore throat pain with Vicks VapoCool drops. Use as directed.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African-American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
It's never too early to start talking about money in realistic ways with your kids. JP Morgan Chase navigates how to educate your kids now about creating long-lasting, healthy money habits. Whether your kids are in elementary school, high school, or college, now is a great time to start a conversation about ways to create healthy money habits as they grow, ultimately benefiting their financial future. Talking about money in a realistic way to support your kids' lifestyle and dreams, your first banking account geared towards high school or college. It's never too early. Explaining the basics, what you earn and what you spend, building financial confidence starts with getting organized. Learning and practicing vital money skills now will stay with them for life. Tools they will have to stay on top of their finances and achieve their goals. This segment is sponsored by JP Morgan Chase.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Looking forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. This coming Monday on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, Moving Mountains with Ernest Krim III, our favorite millennial. Our very special guest will be CNN legal analyst Joey Jackson, a show you're not going to want to miss. Joey Jackson with us and Ernest Krim this coming Monday on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Very fortunate and very blessed for Joey to be able to give us some of his time. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on this wealthy
Fat Meat.
This is Fat Meat Fridays. I don't want to call it Wealthy Mondays, Gina, but you know.
Wealthy Monday, Moving Mountain Monday, Wealthy Wednesday.
She's got the great tongue twisters. Thank you for getting me out of this with a little humor. All right, welcome to Fat Meat Fridays and Reflectivity with Gina Townsend. I'm so grateful that Bishop Joseph Tolton is our very special guest. Bishop Tolton graduated from Vassar with a BA in religion and also earned an MBA from Columbia University School of Business. Gina Towns transitioned her skills into the full-time ministry here in Chicago, and later in Atlanta. She spent a decade as an executive marketing, fundraising, and events director at Morehouse School of Medicine, where she helped her raise millions of dollars and foster goodwill. A member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority, Kappa Tau Alpha, Journalism Society, Alpha Kappa Mu. Gina is listed among who's who among American women. Gina, welcome forward to your show. That's the easiest way for me to handle it. Just call it your show.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for having me.
Bishop, Gina has a really interesting insight that she wanted to share. And I think it's in the form of a question.
Awesome.
Well, yeah, we had in the last segment, we had a little conversation about Trump and his willingness to forgive those who vote Republican. And that seems like that's just he's a right now kind of guy, however he's feeling in the moment, because most certainly, he doesn't want any parties eventually. This is the road to a dictatorship. It is the road to a third term, and I'm never leaving. I mean, he even told people, and that's the problem. We don't listen when people tell us things. Out of the overflow of the heart, their mouth is speaking. He says, just vote this last time. You're not going to have to vote anymore. So what we're looking at is something a little different than what we've ever seen in the Republican Party, not a little different, quite a bit different, in the honesty which they are moving forward in their racist ideas. And it's not everybody. Everybody is not willing to go that far. They're just on board because they don't believe in this, that, or the other. They're voting their collective interest, much like the Black community has had to do. We haven't agreed with everything that any party has ever said regarding our welfare and benefit, but we've had to vote our collective interest. So I just wanted to just say, I don't think that he's going to be beholden to a party of any sort here very soon. How about that, Jesse or Bishop?
You know, I've never seen anyone just so clearly and overtly in their absolute clarity. They're only going to represent people who vote for them. I mean, he has no interest whatsoever in bringing the country together, and he will indict his political opposition, charge them with, manufactured felonies. He will bring the heat, the military, violating all kinds of historical norms, including posse comitatus, this idea that the U.S. military will never be used against the American people, to the streets of the United States, subversion of the Constitution itself and our nation's laws, ignoring the Congress of the United States, firing federal workers. I mean, I could just go on and on and on, that this guy is exactly what every founding father feared, that someone would have this power and not adhere to the structure of our system. Bishop Tolton.
And we will live under minority rule. So to the points that both of you has made, it's not necessarily about perhaps having a robust Republican Party, but he is going to need a cabal that will participate in his autocratic movement. He's going to need foot soldiers who will surround him and protect his regime. And I think one of the things that we really have to pay attention to is when the grifting starts to not only benefit him and his family, but his key members of the Republican Party. There is no, in my mind, and this is a personal theory that I have, he is setting things up so that he is going to be able to direct a real transfer of wealth to those key Republicans who are vital to maintaining his proposed autocratic order. I think that is definitely what's on the horizon, and that is definitely what's coming. And I think that many of them are bought in, not just because they're afraid and because they're fearful, but because they're clear that there's got to be a payday for them on the other side of this.
And then after the transfer occurs, he's going to pardon them, meaning they can keep the transfer.
That's right.
I fear for my country. I'm sad for my country at this hour.
He did not meet with Orban time and time again in the run-up to the election for no reason. They were not just having tea and crumpets. These were sessions in which Orban was downloading his playbook, and Ann Applebaum does a wonderful job in her book, Autocracy, Inc., of laying this out. Trump is brilliantly, he was a brilliant student, and Orban, I guess, was a very good tutor.
Not to mention the fact that his wife told you all in his first administration that he sleeps with Mein Kampf next to his bed.
Bishop, I know that you're going to give us a word of hope at the end of the next hour. And given that we have just a few seconds left in this hour, I know that you'll be preparing yourself mentally for that. But this has been a rich conversation, Gina, in the first hour. I'm particularly... it's somber.
Mm-hmm. I hope that everyone will move into the second hour with us, because I want to make sure that everyone understands we're not just bemoaning. We're not just complaining. We're going somewhere with this. And one of the things about Fat Meat Friday, it is designed, at least the reflectivity part of it, is designed to help us learn to discern. And so unless we identify the things that can give us some insight into the future, we will continually be at the foot of someone and their knee on our neck. So
it's Fat Meat Fridays. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward. Gina Townsend, Bishop
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. A federal judge is giving the Trump administration until Monday to decide how it will release SNAP funds, with benefits set to expire Saturday. The decision could affect 42 million low-income Americans if the government does not reopen. The ruling comes after 25 Democratic-led states sued over the funding issue. New Obamacare premiums are now live on healthcare.gov, with open enrollment starting Saturday. Rates are expected to rise on average of 26%, though health research nonprofit KFF warns costs could jump 114% if tax credits expire. And the Virginia NAACP is denying reports that it endorsed Democratic candidate Abigail Spanberger in the governor's race. The group's president clarified the NAACP does not endorse candidates, only policies, and urged Black Virginians to vote in next week's election. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Isn't it time you booked that tropical getaway you've been dreaming of? With Fiji Airways, fly direct from LA or San Francisco to Fiji. Start your dream vacation on your way to the beautiful islands of Fiji. For details, visit FijiAirways.com or head to your local travel agent. Conditions apply.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Dodgers have a simple priority for Game 6 in the World Series tonight at Toronto: unlock their offense. A serious lack of hitting is the reason the Dodgers are on the verge of losing the World Series. The Dodgers trail Toronto 3-2 in the best of 7. They have struck out 55 times. After reaching base 9 times in Game 3, Shohei Ohtani has not had a hit in the last 2 games. Mookie Betts is 3 for 25 at the plate. If these numbers don't change tonight, the series could be over. First pitch tonight at 5 o'clock. A crowd of 47,266 showed up last night at Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia, home of the NFL Philadelphia Eagles, to watch an HBCU football game between Delaware State and Norfolk State. Delaware State head coach Deshaun Jackson and Norfolk State head coach Michael Vick were teammates for 5 seasons with the Eagles. Both are in their first seasons as head coaches. Delaware State won the game 27-20. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
You ready? You're invited to the KBLA Talk 1580 Community Health and Wellness Fair on Saturday, November 8th, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Catch at Audubon Middle School in Leimert Park, 4120 11th Avenue. Join us for a day of health, healing, and community connection. There will be health screenings, immunizations, wellness information, a Catch Charter School recruitment fair, plus music and healthy snacks. And it's all free at the KBLA Talk 1580 Community Health and Wellness Fair, Saturday, November 8th, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Audubon Middle School in Leimert Park, 4120 11th Avenue. Come out and bring the entire family. And if you have not yet checked out our KBLA Health and Wellness Hub, you should at KBLA1580.com. KBLA Talk 1580 thanks Catch Charter School, Prudential, Eastside, Cedars-Sinai, and St. John's Community Health. At KBLA Talk 1580, we believe that a healthy community is a thriving community.
That's right, baby.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. It's Fat Meat Fridays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. In this particular hour, we engage in reflectivity. Normally, we look through every show that we've done Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, right up until Friday, and reflect upon what we discussed, the key kernels of truth that matter at this hour to help guide us and sustain us during these very difficult times. In this hour, Gina Towns is our co-host of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on reflectivity. Gina, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you, Jesse Jackson Jr. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Gina. You sound wonderful. And our very special guest is none other than Bishop Joseph Tolton. Bishop Tolton, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, Hour 2.
Warm greetings to both of you, my dear colleagues.
Dear Bishop, Gina raised the question about the spirit of the matter and the spirit energy of the nation during the break. And I'm thinking in this moment that while many of us are engaging in a level of reflection, we saw something in the No Kings March, of people coming together, but there is still this very heavy weight that is sitting on top of every one of our spirits because we know something is not right. Something is wrong here. And it's a heavy burden. I mean, as a minister and as a bishop, it was a heavy burden on Sunday morning when you get up to preach anyway, because everybody in the audience is bringing a burden and they're bringing it to the altar. But the burden is a collectively heavy burden, a fear, a concern about our nation. Bishop Tolton.
I've referenced this, I think, in my conversations with you all in the past, but I've been thinking a lot about my own life in terms of what it meant to have been born 4 months before Dr. King was killed, and to have lived my life under the banner of the civil rights movement. Recently hearing the wonderful Sherilyn Eiffel give reflections on our current situation, she said, we are eating from the fruit of trees that we did not plant. And certainly as a son of the civil rights movement, one born coming out of the civil rights movement, I can say that I have spent my life eating fruit from trees that I did not plant. And now we have the opportunity to plant new trees for that next generation. But the planting can only be done based on our understanding of what has happened. And what I'm really getting to is that memory is the terrain of the oppressed. This is why in the scriptures, the children of Israel say over and over again, tell your stories, remember your stories, remember what God did, tell it, say it, recount it. Because we must go back through the annals of history and remember what we have been through, that we might access that same spirit of resilience and that same spirit of vitality and that same spirit of hope. As I've said before, if in the fields picking cotton, our people were told that, in fact, the scriptures anchored them to their reality as being enslaved, they were yet able to shake off that thought and create their own songs. And they sang songs like, up over my head, I hear music in the air. There must be a God. There must be a political deliverer somewhere. So first and foremost, we must quiet ourselves that we might hear the music that is yet playing over our heads. There are songs of freedom that are being sung in the choirs of heaven that we might be encouraged. We must center ourselves to hear that music. Memory is the terrain of the oppressed. That is the first thing that we must hold on to. We have been here before. We have seen this in the past. We have overcome. The Spirit of God that lies within us is still the same.
Bishop, I certainly hope you have a second word of hope for the end of the program, because that first word of hope right there, wow. Thank you for that. Thank you very much for that. You know, my grandmother used to tell me, well, she didn't tell me, but I figured it out for myself, that I am the beneficiary. We all are the beneficiary of prayers somebody else prayed, even if we didn't pray them for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like planting a seed that you're from a tree that you're eating from, a fruit that you're eating from a tree that you did not plant.
Absolutely.
And in a real sense, that is who we are, Gina. That is where we are.
Absolutely.
Gina?
And I think one of our failures, because you have to be able to look at what I didn't do. What should I have done that I didn't do? What did I do that I should not have done? That's kind of how I always gauge, how is God looking at me today, the uncola and the cola list. And, you know, I love your description, Bishop, when you say that history is our terrain right now. It's a terrain, and I envisioned as well that we were, you know, passing buckets, trying to make sure that there was water to get to wherever the water needed to go, because you have to look back to get it, and then you have to carry it forward. You have to carry that baton that sometimes we want to complain in our generation was not passed to us quickly enough. But what came to mind is that we cannot dwell in the past. When we are on our way out of Sodom and Gomorrah, in its destruction, and we're told not to look back, that dwelling is I want to, you know, you're relishing a place and wishing that you were still there, versus using what you learned in the past in order to forge a new future. And that can destroy us. So I really thank you for that. And in the thought of reflecting on that moment, that was the activity that I saw.
Yes, absolutely. And I love that idea of remembering but not dwelling. I think that that's such a beautiful balance of being able to take the lessons, right, in this Sankofa kind of a way, but at the same time lean into what is possible and what is before us. Absolutely.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to Fat Meat Fridays with Gina Towns. Our very special guest is Bishop Joseph Tolton. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
A safe place to go loud. A great place for progressive politics. KBLA Talk 1580.
On Thursday evening, November 6th, you're invited to the next KBLA Talk 1580 Altadena Town Hall meeting. This time, we're convening at Victory Bible Church, 1497 North Hill Avenue in Pasadena. The town hall will once again be broadcast live on KBLA Talk 1580 from 4 to 6 p.m. on Thursday, November 6th. But you're invited to join us in person for this urgent and necessary community conversation. The theme for this Altadena Eaton Canyon Fire Town Hall is Understanding the Wildfire Recovery Compensation Fund. The primary focus of this gathering is to inform residents about Southern California Edison's newly launched Wildfire Recovery Compensation Program and provide clarity on eligibility and the claims process. There are plenty of questions to be asked, and only KBLA Talk 1580 has the right moderators to ask the tough questions, the right stakeholders and community activists to share their insights, and we have confirmed the participation of corporate executives from Southern California Edison to answer our queries. So be sure to join us at Victory Bible Church in Pasadena, 1497 North Hill Avenue on Thursday, November 6th. The event is free and open to the public, but registration is required at KBLA1580.com. That's KBLA1580.com. Light refreshments will be served immediately following the live town hall. This KBLA Talk 1580 Altadena Rising Town Hall is brought to you by the Black Freedom Fund.
California, this is your moment. The special election is November 4th, and your vote helps decide your future, your community, and your state. Drop your ballot at a secure drop box. Visit an early vote center or mail it. Your participation powers democracy. Every ballot makes a difference. Tell a friend to do the same. Sign up at where'smyballot.sos.ca.gov to track your ballot. Make your voice count. Don't delay. Vote today. A message from the California Secretary of State.
$5,000. That's the average amount of money people in the U.S. are now spending on gas in a year. $5,000. That's crazy. If you drive, you have to download Upside, the free app that gives you cash back every time you get gas. That's right. You can earn real cash back with Upside just by buying the gas you're already buying. You can literally start earning cash back today.
I use Upside every time I fill up, and I've already made around $300.
You're putting gas in your car anyway. Why not get real cash back? If you like free money, download Upside.
I'm saving the cash I earn from using Upside to help pay for a vacation later this year.
Download the free Upside app now to earn cash back every time you buy gas. Use promo code MAJOR25 to get an extra 25 cents per gallon on your first tank. You can cash out anytime right to your bank, PayPal, or a gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Upside app and use promo code MAJOR25 for a 25 cents per gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code MAJOR25 for a 25 cents per gallon bonus.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
You got a big mouth. Hello, Joe, you're up. Welcome.
We're unapologetically progressive and we don't black down.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. In this hour, our very special guest is none other than Bishop Joseph Tolton, the founder and president of the Interconnected Justice, which was established in 2019. The strategic intent of the organization is to be a force uniting global racial justice movements in which the continent of Africa and its diaspora build upon ecosystems of self-defined and determined advocacy. Bishop Tolton, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
So good always to be with you and dear sister Gina. Blessings to both of you.
Reflectivity is always led by our regular host, the creator of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, Gina Towns. She's also the host of Reflectivity on our series, a graduate of Hampton University with a Bachelor of Arts in Mass Communication, Arts, and Journalism. Gina also earned her Master of Arts in Theology and Social Justice from Princeton Theological Seminary. Gina, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you, Jesse.
Gina?
Well, Bishop Tolton, you have illuminated some things for us. In particular, when Jesse said you had already given us a word of hope, there is much hope. There is much hope for, if you think about the history of the world and all of the people in different empires who have gone before us. I was talking earlier this afternoon with Josh, who works with you on a regular basis. And I look forward to a time when we will really kind of dig into our founding document. But you see, early on when they were looking to have a seal, and that is the framers of our Constitution, they were looking for what I feel like is an eternity. There's an infinity signal on one of the proposed seals, and that came from Thomas Jefferson. And so when we think about empire, when we think about the history of empire and what could sustain an empire, what would you say is the one sustaining factor if an empire could at all be eternal?
There is a lie that must be held in place in order to deceive the common person into actually being collectively a cornerstone of empire. Lyndon Johnson, I think, said it best, and I will not quote him accurately, and Jesse probably could, but the essence of his quote was that if you tell a white man that he is better than a black man, you will forever be able to simultaneously be able to rob that person and diminish them economically, because there is a nuclear lie that you have told them that for some reason they are predisposed to want to believe. And that lie, that deception, that deceit is the very idea that keeps in place the common man's participation in actually collectively being a cornerstone of empire. The elite cannot do it by themselves. They must do it with the full cooperation of the common person. And usually the common person is baited into that cooperative status based on a lie that somehow feeds their ego.
I think a lie, Bishop, but also history is not going to record the poignancy and the pungent smell of white supremacy at this hour. It's just not going to record it. It may talk about the lie that gets us here, something that journalists and others can wrap their minds around. And we may not be able to completely wrap our minds around what triggered the American Civil War in 1859, 1860, but with our own intuitive instinct, white supremacy was a factor in that thing, man. I mean, it was a spirit that drove the irrational nature of one side wanting to tear the Union apart over its state sovereignty and the other side wanting to stop the expansion of slavery into the Western territory, but at the same time not wanting to grant the Negro rights on either side, male or female. I mean, it's the history bears the fact that it was there, but it was never recorded. That the spirit energy of this thing was never recorded. And if you had to write the story of how first Reconstruction ended, you would have to elevate the argument that the pungent feeling and odor of white supremacy at that hour was almost a religion unto itself, where rational thought was no longer the order of the day. And I want to quote two people when I think about this question of empire. First, I will start with Napoleon Bonaparte. Bonaparte says, Alexander, Caesar, Charlemagne, and I have founded empires. But on what did the rest, but on what did we rest the creations of our genius? Upon force? Jesus founded his empire upon love. And at this hour, millions of men would die for him. Gina's question was about empire. Martin Luther King Jr., 100 or 200 years later, said this: the great military leaders of the past have gone. Their empires have crumbled and burned to ashes. But the empire of Jesus, built solidly and majestically on the foundation of love, is still growing. Martin Luther King Jr. must have read Napoleon Bonaparte. They credit the sustainability of empires on the principles and the precepts of Jesus of Nazareth, not on its politics, not on its parties, not on its personalities, but the ministry that civilization is based upon, the love of neighbor, the love of enemy, the idea that we can coexist and live together. That is the foundation of civil society. And one of the things I can say earnestly now in this moment, in this conversation, with a truth of my own, I don't know, like Dr. George Yancey said from Emory State University, how much time America has left.
Yeah.
He said 9 minutes to midnight. But I do know that what comes forward will be based upon the same precepts and ministry of Jesus of Nazareth, if it is to endure. I'm trying to hold on to America as much as I can. I'm doing everything I can to prop her up and make her work off of those precepts and principles. But I do know that what comes next is still going to be more Jesus if it's going to survive. Why? Because Bonaparte says so. Because Martin Luther King Jr. says so. And because every empire for the last 2,025 years that has not survived didn't get it right. We're going to have to get it right. Gina?
I took the moment while you were talking, and thank you for that, Jesse. That was very eloquently stated, well thought, and a great drawn conclusion. I went to the book of Ephesians.
Yes.
And I want to take one moment, since we're in our longer segment, to read this. After an exhortation about how slaves and masters should regard one another and how everyone should behave, because there's never been any slavery quite like what we saw here in the United States. So that's a totally different thing. We'll discuss that another time. What we will talk about is that there is a spiritual battle that wages far beyond what we can even say. And that gets to the spirit that we've been talking about. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Therefore, put on the full armor of God, so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground. And after you've done everything to stand firm then with the belt of truth buckled around your waist, with the breastplate of righteousness in place, with your feet fitted for readiness. And that comes from the peace that comes from this gospel. In addition to all of this, take the shield of faith with which you can extinguish all of the flaming arrows of the evil one. Take the helmet of salvation and the sword that is the Spirit, which is the word of God. That is our instruction for this hour. And that is the reflectivity. That is what, we are able, as Bishop talked about in the last segment, that is what we look back towards. That's what we put over our doorpost. That's where we find our peace when we breathe deeply to fight for the next day.
Bishop?
Absolutely. I'm quite amazed to some degree that you read that scripture, because it was absolutely bubbling up in my spirit as Jesse was talking. Yes, this is ultimately a spiritual battle. And as Sister Gina just quoted the scripture there, Paul said it and laid it out. This is really not even about fighting those who are our political opponents. And obviously we understand the clash that we're in, but it really is about what is the spiritual sickness or disorder or disease that is plaguing particularly our white brothers and sisters, that they want to further this adventure of white supremacy. And I think that the first thing that we have to do with great humility is first turn the light on ourselves and ask ourselves, is that spirit of domination at all alive in us? So that first I've got to conquer myself. First, I've got to overcome my own tendencies as a man to perhaps participate in leveraging my own kind of male privilege. And so once I'm able to kind of rebuke myself, then I'm prepared to be able to rebuke structural forces and speak truth to power in that way. But this is a spiritual battle, and it really is about overcoming these innate, unfortunate desires that are a part of the human condition that afflict all of us, regardless of our race or ethnicity or anything else. This is a spiritual battle.
Bishop, you see it as a spiritual battle. I see it as a spiritual battle. Gina laid out the appropriate scriptural references that confirms she sees it as a spiritual battle. But what happens when our opponents see it as a political battle? When for them, it is not a function of the spirit of the matter. It's a function of winning and losing. You're the Democrat, you lost. You're the blue, we're the red. I'm the white, you're the black. You and I see it in this spiritual space, but they see it as a chess game, a game of winners and losers. How do we communicate the spiritual nature of brotherhood, of sisterhood, in light of how our opponent sees us?
I think this is why Jesus said that the scriptures teach us that we've got to be wise as serpents and harmless as doves. We have to understand that it is a spiritual battle. We have to operate and walk and move in the spirit through prayer and through our collective raising of our consciousness. But then at the same time, at a very tactical and practical level, we have to deal with the human realities that we're facing. And so when we're dealing with opponents who don't see it as a spiritual battle, we have to then become very clever as it relates to using the political tactics that are within our arsenal to advance our agenda. And when we're able to do that, hope that we're then given some reprieve to be able to elevate the conversation and speak to it in these more meta terms where people might be able to hear us speak to the spiritual nature of the conflict that we are engaged in.
Gina, I do want you to respond to that, but I can be candid with you. I'm tired of being the one black guy that my right-wing friends say, Jesse really understands. He really hears me. He's different than everybody. I'm not trying to be different than everybody. I'm just being patient with you. I'm working with you to get you right, but there's so many of y'all.
Yeah,
it's impossible, Gina.
You know, that is the question. We really cannot judge a man's heart until we come into contact with him, when we hear him speak. I still hold out the light in this present darkness, that if you give people the opportunity who say they believe to live that, give them something to put their left foot on, and that be their Bible, and give them something to put their right foot on, that be the Constitution. That just does not apply to our adversary or who we might perceive to be, because as you said, Bishop, I don't want to make the mistake. I've had to overcome this mistake in my life. This idea that white people all feel the same way, because black people don't all feel the same way. We are each human beings. And this is where Martin Luther King was trying to get us to go as a nation, to be able to look at content of character and not color of skin. And so really what we're doing is picking up that. We should never have let it go. But that is where we are.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Our very special guest is Bishop Joseph Tolton on Fat Meat Fridays. This is Reflectivity with Gina Towns. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
The station you turn to when you've had it up to gear with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. The government shutdown has entered its 31st day with no end in sight. President Trump continues to blame Democrats.
The Democrats just don't know what they're doing.
The Senate is adjourned until Monday, and millions of low-income Americans face losing SNAP benefits for November. A federal judge has given the Trump administration until Monday to decide whether to authorize reduced payments. Federal prosecutors in Los Angeles are investigating claims that the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation defrauded donors. The group, separate from the broader Black Lives Matter movement, faced criticism for buying a $6 million home in 2022, but says it's not under investigation and has been fully transparent. And Alaska's first Black female judge, Pamela Scott Washington, is retiring this week. Appointed in 2010, she served 15 years on the bench, leading the Mental Health Court and co-chairing the state's Fairness, Diversity, and Equality Commission. It's BIN News Now, on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Isn't it time you booked that tropical getaway you've been dreaming of? With Fiji Airways, fly direct from LA or San Francisco to Fiji. Start your dream vacation on your way to the beautiful islands of Fiji. For details, visit FijiAirways.com or head to your local travel agent. Conditions apply.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Dodgers have a simple priority for Game 6 in the World Series tonight at Toronto. Unlock their offense. A serious lack of hitting is the reason the Dodgers are on the verge of losing the World Series. The Dodgers trail Toronto 3-2 in the best of 7. They have struck out 55 times. After reaching base 9 times in Game 3, Shohei Ohtani has not had a hit in the last 2 games. Mookie Betts is 3 for 25 at the plate. If these numbers don't change tonight, the series could be over. First pitch tonight at 5 o'clock. A crowd of 47,266 showed up last night at Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia, home of the NFL Philadelphia Eagles, to watch an HBCU football game between Delaware State and Norfolk State. Delaware State head coach Deshaun Jackson and Norfolk State head coach Michael Vick were teammates for 5 seasons with the Eagles. Both are in their first seasons as head coaches. Delaware State won the game 27-20. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
If you missed the recent Left Coast Forum, then you really missed out. An insightful presentation from Professor Richard Wolff, a call to action from LA Mayor Karen Bass, an insider's view on Prop 50 and the government shutdown from Congresswoman Sidney Kamlager-Dove, and as usual, Dr. Cornel West brought down the House with a powerful closing keynote. And many of the plenary sessions were standing room only. Check out our social media posts for photos and video of what you missed at the Left Coast Forum and make plans to attend one of our upcoming events. Our next Altadena Town Hall is Thursday, November 6th, 4 to 6 p.m. at Victory Bible Church in Pasadena. We're going to interrogate SoCal Edison's settlement fund and see what's really going on with this fire recovery program. And our KBLA Talk 1580 Community Health and Wellness Fair is Saturday, November the 8th, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. right here in Lemert Park at Catch at Audubon Middle School. All the details about these upcoming events can be found at our website, KBLA1580.com. So thanks again to all those who supported the Left Coast Forum, and a special thanks to our partners this year: the LA Progressive, the Empowerment Congress, Community Coalition, Southwest Voter Registration Education Project, Partnership for Growth, UTLA, LA Care Health Plan, Black Progressive Action Coalition, St. John's Community Health, the National Lawyers Guild, the Weingart Foundation, and the Liberty Hill Foundation.
Donald Trump has all but declared war on California, sending in a National Guard, blocking disaster relief, and cutting funds to our colleges. And now, he and Texas Republicans are trying to rig the next election by stealing congressional seats from black voters in states like Texas.
They want to rig these elections, and they want the power that gerrymandering provides.
Seriously, look it up. But Prop 50 is how we fight back. It gives Californians the power to fight fire with fire and beat Trump at his own game. Prop 50 creates temporary emergency congressional maps that level the playing field and protect the power of black votes. Not just in California, but across the country. Your vote matters, and the whole country is counting on California to lead. So use your vote to protect our power, our history, and our future. Vote yes on Prop 50 by November 4. Ad paid for by Yes on 50, the Election Rigging Response Act, Governor Newsom's Ballot Measure Committee, Ad Committee's top funders, HMP for Prop 50, and Fund for Policy Reform.
We knew you'd stick around. This is LA's home for Progressive Talk Radio. Welcome back to KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey, I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Looking forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk. Hey, this is Reflectivity on the Gina Towns Show. Gina, Fat Meat Fridays. Here we reflect upon our week's work, but we also reflect upon the state of our spirits. And our very special guest, in his own right, is a spiritual genius, and I'm very grateful for his participation in our show. Bishop Joseph Tolton, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Grace and peace both to you, Brother Jackson, and to you, Sister Gina Thompson.
Gina, I'm like totally in love with Bishop Tolton's very calm demeanor. I get up at an ungodly hour every morning.
Well, let's have him on daily.
I get up every morning at 3 o'clock, walking, pacing, shaking, wondering what the news is going to be. And I feel like Bishop Tolton might sleep in a yoga pose.
In perfect peace.
I mean, what do they call it? Child's prayer.
I'm not mad at him then.
He ain't wrong.
Somebody's got
wherever you're doing yoga, Bishop Tolton, make sure you're with us, because the calm demeanor in this space is exactly what the times call for, and it's hard to get to that space. It just is. Gina, you wanted to you had some thoughts about
I
closing out the
wanted
lesson.
Bishop to pick up on the point that he was making before we went to the break, because he really was calling out our individual need to look at ourselves and then cast a view to the empire.
Yes, it's I've been thinking a lot about how racialized the moment is. And in a racialized moment, sometimes it becomes difficult to see the humanity of other people. The humanity, in this case, of white folks, even white Southern Christian nationalists or white Christian nationalists at large. And when our view or vision becomes impaired in terms of our ability to really see people's humanity, I think that it then begins to erode our own sense of humanity. And we actually then might become kind of victims of our oppression, leading us to think that there is something about us, because we just happen to be the oppressed and not the oppressor, that makes us kind of distinct or more human or more valuable in the eyes of God. And so I do think it's really important for us to think about the fact that we are all prisoners of the human condition. And as prisoners of the human condition, it's only love that can unlock the prison doors and release our spirits to come into their full sense of truth and to come into a Christ consciousness. And if we give ourselves grace to be able to evolve and to heal, I think then we can offer a reasonable portion of grace to others, and we can start to see others and their full humanity and see that we're really in this human condition together, and that it is our relationship to each other that can only perfect a sense of divinity breaking through our humanity. Now, while I do believe that, at the same time, my feet are still planted on the ground, and I'm clear about some of the marching orders that we have to implement in order to see change. And sometimes that does mean some direct action and some direct conflict. But my hope is that we can be balanced and keep both.
You know, Bishop, when I think about the aggressive nature, non-militant, of course, of Martin Luther King Jr. and the nonviolent course of action that he chose to pique the conscience of mankind, I think that's a pretty good summary. I'm wondering, are we piquing in any way the conscience of the evangelicals, the root of their spiritual systems that's driving their politics? I'm wondering if we're supposed to not just meet with their pastors and have conversations about our theological differences, but actually worship with them, spend time with them, show them a perspective that we can't see, and learn a perspective that we don't understand and can't see. I'm wondering if our Christianity isn't aggressive enough, if we're talking to the same people over and over again, and we're not entering into the spaces of people who have preconceived notions about us. We overcome a lot of stuff when we get to know each other and we spend time together. And you know, the elimination of some of these government programs today and tomorrow, I'm thinking that, you know, we're going to be welcoming some new people into our homes for Thanksgiving dinner, because there's some families who aren't going to have the same Thanksgiving dinner they had last week or last year or the year before or the year. This is going to be a very different Thanksgiving. So I'm wondering, is our Christianity on the liberation theological side aggressive enough?
I am very willing to connect with those that don't necessarily hold my same belief system or might have my interest at heart. Now, I will say that where I draw the line is I'm not clapping on the 1 and the 3. So as long as we can,
hey, minor,
as long as we got that ground rule set, then anything is possible. But in all seriousness, I had the pleasure of being with Reverend Jackie Lewis and her congregation this morning, because they're having a conference called The Urgency of Now. And they are a multiracial congregation that I think is speaking to the very question that you're answering. And one of the things that I found fascinating about one of the breakout sessions that they're having after the plenaries is they're having a breakout session just for white folk to force them to talk to each other about these issues. I think that that is only a product of a broader gathering in which you do have people coming from different perspectives, from different races, from different viewpoints, sharing those viewpoints and challenging each other, and then kind of empowering and freeing, in this case, white folk to feel like they can take on the burden and responsibility of having a conversation where they're going to have to talk about white supremacy among themselves and see it as a white issue. So yes, we do have to be more aggressive with our Christianity, tearing down barriers between us, having cross-cultural conversations, and sitting in some pretty uncomfortable spaces to get us to hopefully a more comfortable outcome.
You know, Gina, when I talk to some of my evangelical friends, they see Trump essentially as a useful idiot. They're advancing their, to Bishop Tolton's point, theological perspectives and points of view through him. But they don't necessarily believe that he's a believer or he's from the faith. They do understand that he's a businessman, but he's helping them accomplish some things that are deeply rooted in their theological beliefs. And in short, the means for them is justifying the end. Yeah. Gina, your thoughts about the complicated relationship between the evangelicals and their political leader?
I think that harkens back to a comment that I made perhaps in the first hour with regard to voting your collective interests. I remember when George Bush was running for president and, he made a promise, never heard that promise again. It happens, and people will tend to pick one issue and say, that's important enough for me to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And I don't know. I mean, let's talk about Black people, because, you have a group of people who have had to fight, get amendments to the Constitution in order to be free. So that's a little different from being a part of the majority where, slavery has occurred. We can't ignore that elephant in the room. So it's much easier to not have to vote your freedom. And that's what Black people have had to consider. No one else has had to consider that in the United States. People come from every country around the world, and they come to something that has already been grounded in the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, and the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments to the United States Constitution, from which all things flow: freedom. I wish I had a little more time in this segment, and hopefully we can pick this up when we come forward. But that's the beginning of what I have to say, because I have had an experience where, based on 1 + 1 = 2 from this scripture, this passage, people from all walks of life looked at it and said, hey, I believe that. That's what I see, and began to worship with one another in a non-racial way. So I want to share a little bit more about that when we come forward, Jesse.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward.
Say the quiet part out loud. KBLA Talk 1580.
Donald Trump has all but declared war on California, sending in the National Guard, blocking disaster relief, and cutting funds to our colleges. And now, he and Texas Republicans are trying to rig the next election by stealing congressional seats from Black voters in states like Texas.
They want to rig these elections, and they want the power that gerrymandering provides.
Seriously, look it up. But Prop 50 is how we fight back. It gives Californians the power to fight fire with fire and beat Trump at his own game. Prop 50 creates temporary emergency congressional maps that level the playing field and protect the power of Black votes. Not just in California, but across the country. Your vote matters, and the whole country is counting on California to lead. So use your vote to protect our power, our history, and our future. Vote yes on Prop 50 by November 4th. Ad paid for by Yes on 50, the Election Rigging Response Act, Governor Newsom's Ballot Measure Committee, Ad Committee's top funders, HMP for Prop 50, and Fund for Policy Reform.
September is World Alzheimer's Month, a time to shine a light on a public health crisis that deeply impacts Black families. 1 in 5 Black adults ages 70 and older is living with Alzheimer's disease, or AD, and the risk is twice as high compared to white adults. But AD isn't just forgetting a name or losing track of time. Signs of early AD could be repeating questions, missing appointments, or struggling with bills and daily tasks. These things aren't a normal part of aging. Here's the good news. Treatments are available that may help if AD is diagnosed early. If you notice changes in memory or daily routines, whether in yourself or a loved one, don't wait. Early diagnosis and intervention are key to managing AD effectively. To learn more about AD and a potential treatment option, visit treatalsearly.com. That's treatalzearly.com to learn more about the signs and symptoms and a potential treatment option. This message is brought to you by AZI. Open enrollment is your opportunity to choose a plan that connects you to Providence's comprehensive healthcare network. Choose a plan that includes Providence and gain access to a dedicated team of highly trained primary care physicians and specialists. From nationally recognized doctors and hospitals, Providence ensures quality care is always within reach. When you choose Providence, you choose after-hours care through our nurse advice line, urgent care, or virtual express care. You choose 24/7 access through the Providence mobile app to message providers, request prescription refills, schedule appointments, check lab results, and more. This open enrollment, prioritize your well-being with the peace of mind that comes from choosing a provider that values excellence and compassionate care. Don't just choose a plan. Choose a plan dedicated to health equity and community engagement. Choose a plan that believes health is a human right. Choose a plan that delivers exceptional care and cares about your community. Choose a plan that offers Providence. Visit chooseprovidence.org to learn more.
Vote centers across Los Angeles County are open. Don't wait for Election Day. Vote early at any vote center near you. You can drop off your ballot, vote in person, or even register and vote the same day. Make your plan, make your voice heard, and make it count. Visit lavote.gov to find a vote center or official ballot drop box close to home. That's lavote.gov, your trusted source for voting in LA County.
Heard any other talk radio lately that sounds anything like this? I didn't think so. You're listening to Unapologetically Progressive, KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. Saturday Fridays with Gina Towns, and our very special guest is Bishop Joseph Tolton. Bishop, welcome forward to the show. Gina, welcome forward to the show.
Amen.
Thank you.
Good to be here.
You know, let me share with you something about being a pastor, which I know nothing about, by the way, but I do know that the pastor sets the spirit energy of the congregation. I don't know much about being the captain of an NBA basketball team, but I do know that Magic Johnson as the captain set the spirit energy for the performance of the players.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it means to be the captain of a football team, but I do know that it's usually the quarterback, but it can be an offensive or defensive linebacker, someone like Mike Singletary, some real motivating force on the team. And for a country, I have to believe that its president or supreme leader has to be responsible for the spirit energy of a nation, the conduct of the people, the supreme example of domestic behavior, of global behavior, of how we treat not only each other, but how we treat our neighbors around the world. Bishop Tolton, you do an extraordinary amount of work in Africa. What are the Africans saying at this hour about America and the spirit energy?
Well, it certainly depends on the African that you're speaking to. If it is an African who is a part of the systems that uphold autocracy or that connect to the spirit of dominionism, they celebrate what Trump is doing because the heavy hand of a strong man is something that they're rather comfortable with, and in many cases perceive that it is the only way to truly govern a nation and advance it toward a particular end. But the people are clear that there is a great disconnect between the idea of America being the greatest democracy and the truth of its implementation, and that now that disconnect and the ugliness of that disconnect is being made manifest, so that our berating African nations for years about not adhering to democratic norms was really a very hypocritical adventure, because we truly were never a real democracy, and that we never really cared for our most marginalized, and certainly didn't care for people with dark skin. So I think that there are multiple conversations going on the continent of Africa. Conservative Christians are applauding what he's doing in terms of pushing back against queer rights and certainly trans identity. But I think that the person on the ground who no longer has food or bread because USAID programs have been cut, or the person in Kenya who realizes that Ruto has dialed up his own authoritarian tactics and tendencies because he feels covered by what's happening out of the White House, that they're connecting the dots clearly about the disconnects between who we aspire to be and who we actually are.
You know, when I think about the prophet, for unto us a child is born, a son is given, upon whose shoulders will rest the government, and he shall be called all of these wonderful things, from counselor to king to prince of peace to leader, just all of the wonderful adjectives that we would ascribe to someone that we would look up to. But it's going to be the head of the government, because the government, that particular head, it sets the spirit energy for the entire nation. And if you don't have that kind of spirit head at the top of an entire nation, the consequences of it are extraordinary in every single home. Chena, some final thoughts, and then the last word, our word of hope from Bishop Tolton.
Before we went to the break, I shared that I had a very uncommon experience, so much so that it called me away from the career that I was building, because I sat before the word of God with someone guiding me, yes, but it was not anyone who was, in a pulpit or anything like that. I'd been doing that off and on for all of my life and experienced, this, that, and the other. But it really took a one-on-one, by putting the word as a mirror before me. I share that because there were a number of people at that time from all walks of life. And that was the other thing that really caught me off guard, particularly in Chicago. But for those who are in Los Angeles, who have had this experience, certainly there was a sister church there, a pretty big one, as a matter of fact, at that time. And what you found was people overcoming the color of their skin because they were so focused on what it was to live out what it was that was so exciting, as described in the book of Acts. So when you go back to being an Orthodox believer, you find that you can transcend those things, and not that they won't creep into that setting. What's on the outside, the racism will creep in because people will bring it in with them. But people have an opportunity to grow. They have an opportunity to become something other than what they are. When George Floyd was murdered, one of the people that I had that experience with, he's a white guy he's living in Ohio, and has a wife and 2 children. He says, Gina, I have to tell you that my wife and I are really struggling about what to tell the girls at the dinner table at night about what they saw with George Floyd. And I want to tell you how grateful I am, but I'm also humbled by the fact that my Black brothers and sisters in that instance never complained, never felt it necessary to tell all the white people how bad they had been treated before they came into this circumstance. I look back on that comment and I think about the conversation that you just talked about, Bishop, that we do need to have. They are conversations that we need to have, because when you hear somebody else's struggle, the more you hear, the more you know that you struggle the same. It may not be racism, but in this instance, when we think about people who will not be able to feed their children, that's going to go across the board of race.
Bishop, we have about 3 minutes for your word of hope.
If necessity is the mother of invention, a crisis is the catalyst for creativity. Historically, when the state has abandoned Black people, we have rebuilt care for ourselves, from maroon villages to freedom schools. And in this modern era, we are seeing a renaissance in which Black faith leaders, I believe, are stepping up in unique and wonderful ways. And that needs to be celebrated, and we need to tap into the work that they're doing and see them as elams, as springs in the desert. I want to honor the work of Pastor Jamal Bryant, who I think has done a formidable job leading the boycott on Target, in which he's created a mold for us to have an economic expression of resistance. I want to lift up the work of Pastor Starsky Wilson, who is pressing forward with a modern day understanding or construction of freedom schools, bringing many young African-American children to a farm in Tennessee and giving them an opportunity to explore and to understand Black excellence among themselves. Bishop Yvette Flunder continues to lift up the trans and queer community. Pastor Otis Moss is doing great work speaking back against the erosion of our cultural institutions. There are faith leaders who are stepping up and I think really taking the wheel and pushing back against and creating a light in the midst of the darkness that we're experiencing. We should see that work, we should celebrate it, and we should feel inspired and hopeful because of it.
Well, I certainly am today, Cheetah.
Absolutely.
I think that Bishop Tolton has touched upon the spirit energy. And these are matters of the spirit. And it's a very, very powerful expression to reflect not on the things that we believe we can't do, but sometimes Dr. Howard Thurman called it a journey within that we have to take. Gina Towns calls it reflectivity. She calls it looking in the mirror and looking at herself. And Bishop Tolton says that through hope, we also share a mirror. When we move forward in a spirit of cooperation, a spirit of togetherness, and the recognition that we are not abandoned in this hour. That the same faith that brought Moses over the Red Sea, the same faith that rose our Savior from the dead, the same faith that propelled our movement from 1619 to the present, is the same faith that will carry us through. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward next week. Happy Halloween, everyone.
KBLA.